Hi, I'm Sean Dorney. I'm a journalist and former foreign correspondent who used to work for the ABC. But now, like you, I've got MND. It's a bit of a bugger, but MND and me has put this video together so that if you've been recently diagnosed, you'll learn you're not alone. You'll be hearing from 4 of your fellow afflicted who have come to terms with this disease that's weakening us all. First, it's important not to bury your head in the sand. You can get access to credible information, so don't stop asking questions. And importantly, be proactive. And for goodness sakes, do not wait until you find yourself in an emergency situation.
And no question silly about him in MND. It's your life. So you've got to, if there's a question, ask it, and ask it when it comes into your mind. Don't leave it. Shoot off an email or whatever. That's the experience I had. I was able to get a lot of answers very quickly. Talk to your GP. Whether if you've got a good relationship with your GP, make sure you get down and talk to them about it. Most GPs won't have seen a case of MND in their career, so it's going to be a learning process for them as well. So and they can be a great source of information, advice, some little therapies that may help you. So there's that's my advice. Don't panic. For God's sake, don't sell everything and pack up and say go on a worldwide trip, because you could be here for the long haul, and you've got to make sure that you're going to be looked after. The NDIS is obviously going to help with that now, but certainly don't sort of, as I say, panic and sell the farm. I've got to get rid of all my money, because I'm not going to be here very much longer. But certainly, take time to think about things. Talk to some professionals. I know when we're diagnosed, not straight away, but I made sure that I spoke to a financial planner. I made sure that we spoke to solicitors and things to get our wills in order and those sort of things. It's stuff that I guess you should probably be doing anyway. But this sort of just gives a little kick in the backside to make sure you are doing it. So when you're first diagnosed, whether it's up at the hospital, wherever it is, you get a lot of information about who the people are who can help you, and who the allied health team is that will be around to answer questions for you, help you out with treatments and that sort of thing. I've been very well served for the last couple of years by Anglicare. It's a bit of a one-stop shop for me. So I see an OT from there, an occupational therapist, a physio, speechy, but they have dietitians, they have all sorts of people. But that's just one of the many sort of groups around or services, service providers that can help you. So make sure when you're talking to the people at clinic or your neuro or their support people, ask them about how do I get in contact with these sort of people. Make sure that you get in contact with the I guess not the allied health people, but other support networks like MND and me and your state organisations. If you're not in Queensland, make sure you get into you get in contact with the MND association for that state or other support groups, because they are out there, and sometimes it's just a little bit of Googling to find out who's out there and asking questions. So, as I mentioned before, don't stop asking questions, because the more information you've got, the more equipped you are to be able to battle this thing.
Be prepared to be your own advocate. Now for me, I started with legs and arms, so I needed people to help me who were physiotherapists, OTs, those sorts of people. For some of our friends that were diagnosed, they needed speech pathologists and dietitians. Make sure that whatever your symptom is, you get the right people early on supporting you. And that's all through talking to your particular doctor and the clinic that you're with, and get the right people referred through Allied Health.
It's important to get out there and be proactive in getting things happening. I'll give you an example. I've got taken delivery of an electric wheelchair, and we have family that live in Brisbane. And a lot of people said, well, you just catch a, with electric wheelchair, just catch a maxi taxi. But to get independence, it's probably worthwhile, if you can afford it, get a converted vehicle. My wife happened to notice a lady driving around Harbour Town in an electric wheelchair and stalked her, followed her to track her down to find out how she got the wheelchair there. And it turns out she had took a vehicle to a vehicle converter, and this lady has MS, but she could actually still drive a car, and she had the vehicle converted so she could actually run a wheelchair up. It goes into a docking station, and then she can drive the car home, which is pretty good. So unless you talk to people, you don't know these sort of things. I think the important thing is to, once you get into the system, get advised by people who've had MND or advisors to MND, and work out things you've got to do to make sure you don't miss out on assistance, because it can be an expensive exercise. For example, an electric wheelchair, $28,000. And that's a big ask. Probably you also need to get registered with Motor Neurone Foundation. So, and that way, and with your partner to get registered as a carer, so you can go along to carers meetings. You hear mixed stories about that. Some people don't like to go to carers meetings because they feel they get depressed by it. But I think you need to keep a bit of a finger in the pie there, because you need to know how experiences other people are having so that you can be prepared and get the right help and assistance that you need.
It's very important to have support people, because they know what it's all about. We don't know it. We didn't know anything about it. It's like MND got me onto Sarah. They got me my first wheelchair. They spoke to my son, and they sent me my support coordinator, Sarah, and she's just organised everything for me. Like, I mean, we can ring MND and me for anything, and they're always willing to help. I mean, they've helped me a hell of a lot. I don't know if they're like that with everybody else because I'm good looking, maybe, I don't know.
Some great advice there. Now, one thing you'll find exceptionally useful is to plan ahead. Let's face it, MND is a life-shortening disease, so you will probably need to condense whatever plans you already have. Some of the necessary planning could be a bit confronting, like sorting out your will, delegating powers of attorney, and, the one I found most sobering of all, dictating your advanced health directive. Other categories where planning is needed include financial, what's the state of your insurance and superannuation? Lifestyle, is there a bucket list holiday you've always wanted to do? And in dealing with this disease, what sort of support services, aids and equipment you may need. By planning, you can regain control of your life, taking that control away from MND.
Don't quit your job as soon as you find out, okay? Because you may need that support network as well as your family and friends, or maybe that's all you've got is your work colleagues. So don't throw your job in and think, oh no, it's all over, my career's over, it's all done, that sort of thing. Keep working if that's what you want to do. I'd still be working if I could.
Well, for us, the way we've challenged it is that we have always been forward planners, which is real bitch when something like this happens. So we set about our first year and we had a bucket list. Now, we've been very fortunate and have had some really great travels as a family. So we said, right, where do we want to go? So last year we did New York and Washington and the Hamptons. Then we did Tanzania. Then we did Dubai and Turkey. Our daughter got married in Dubai. We were on their family moon with them. And we made sure we planned each thing we wanted to do. For me, it helped because I knew that I had a big trip or a big event to plan. We got to the end of last year and I said, right, I need to plan again because I need to know that, I've got something to look forward to. So our plans are probably cut back to, month to month to month. But for us, there's still got to be a plan. So it's visits from family, friends, social events we know we want to get to, just making sure that we can keep that forward focus. We still have a child at home, at school, and he's only in grade 11. So we know we've got 2 full school years yet to plan. So yeah, just keep doing what we can and trying to make the most when previously we might have said, it's a bit of a hassle to drive all the way up there and visit that friend. Now it's, no, let's make it happen. So being more prepared to do the here and now stuff, but still for us planning so that we know things will happen. There's going to be some stuff that you have to do that's not nice, that is confronting. Do it, get it done, and leave it. And so things like wills, advanced health directives, financial planning, insurances, working out what we wanted to do for employment, retirement, funerals, getting everything in order. I had to deal with it, and we dealt with it very matter of fact. So it was right, get it done, get it over. We were lucky we had wills and those sorts of things already in place. We just needed to check that they still met our requirements. But so the thing, I suppose, is work out what you need, have the support of someone like Sarah from MND and me, or one of the other support groups that can just take the time to listen and to help sort your thoughts out and the emotions that go with it.
Now, when I was first diagnosed, it came as a bit of a shock, and my wife and I had a good cry about it. What we didn't do, and I'd urge you to do the same, is we didn't go to Dr. Google. It's critical that any decisions that you make are based on factual information. And as I'm sure you know, not everything on the internet is correct. It's a fact that everyone's MND journey is different. So listen to your neurologist and take everything in during your first few visits to the doctor.
Once you've been diagnosed, there's the very strong temptation to get straight onto Dr. Google and the internet and find out all sorts of things. And you're going to read about horror stories, you're going to read about good news stories, everything to do with MND. But I found that the best information and advice I got wasn't from the internet. It was actually from speaking to my doctors, my support people, the organisations who helped me out, because you'll find on things like the internet, and they'll talk about a lot of statistics and things like average life expectancy and that sort of thing, but you've just got to remember that they are statistics and they're averages, so everyone's going to be different. Look at me, I'm nearly 3 years down the track, and there's people who've lived a long time with this disease, well over 10 years. So don't, by all means, jump on Google, because I still do it, but take everything with a grain of salt, because it's not the be all and end all, and it you can, once you start reading into Google, then you start looking for things that may not be happening with your body as a result of this. I know when I first got onto Google, I was looking for symptoms that, oh, hang on, I haven't got that. Maybe I haven't got MND, but we're all different. So it can be a trap, but it's a great source of information, but it's also can be very misleading too. So don't get caught in that trap.
We also had to say to the kids, look, there are some things to look at online and there are some things not to. And so we had to get them to focus on things like the MND AQ FAC website, looking at, you've just been newly diagnosed or your family has. We got onto the MND and Me website and looked at the newly diagnosed YouTube video. We looked at the symptoms and treatments and management of them, and that video was particularly good at just, I suppose, trying to clarify a little bit of the unknown without it being too confronting.
Internet information is quite overwhelming. I know some people go and research to the nth degree. I didn't actually do that, but I've certainly read the notes that we've get newsletters from MND New South Wales and MND Queensland, and I read the research stuff there to find out what's going and if any breakthroughs are happening.
Don't Google. Don't Google at all. Don't look it up. I said that to my kids. They didn't listen. I didn't look it up for a long time. Instead of looking it up, I joined some MND groups on Facebook. But no, because some people do live longer than what they say, and you put it in your head, oh, I've only got 2.5 years to live, or this or that. No, because that's what and everybody reads it and then they pity you. But it's not all that bad. Some people have the slow progressing one, but I wouldn't Google it at all.
There are not too many positive things about having MND, but one of them is that it does not affect your mental capacity. You're as smart as you ever were, maybe smarter. However, getting through some days is going to be a challenge, but you can do it. Try to remain patient. One of my problems was trying to rush around as I used to, which simply led to me falling over. Here are some suggestions about how to remain positive and getting through each and every day.
How I cope with every day is initially I was treating the whole thing like a little bit of a project, because that's some of the things I used to do for work. I loved organising events and that sort of thing, and this is a big event. So I used to treat everything like a little project. So when the house was being modified and renovated, I was, I suddenly turned into a little bit of a project manager. But it's not just those things. It's, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd always have something to do that day. There was never a day and there still is never a day when I don't know what I'm going to be doing that day. I've got never ever had a day where I'm just going to wake up, see how I'm feeling. You know, if I plan that tomorrow I'm going to do 2 loads of washing, you know, and help out still, because I can still help out with some things around the home, then to me that's, you know, it's keeping my mind active, because your mind still is there at 100%. So it keeps your mind active, it keeps your body active, but then that's not to say if you don't feel like doing it, don't push yourself, because, you know, it's MND is a disease that, you know, fatigues you very quickly. So what I was saying was, you know, I treat everything like a project, and it's sort of like a to-do list, if you like. But if it doesn't get ticked off, I'm not too concerned, because it'll be there tomorrow.
Well, I haven't got a routine, actually. I haven't, to be honest with you. I just make the most of what I can do the day.
The key points would be to stay positive. Just take one day at a time and make as many memories as you can. That's what I'm doing. That's what keeps me going day by day. You know, the doctors can only do so much. They can't really control what's happening. You know what I mean? They can't stop the progression of it. And it might seem to be progressing quickly. Hopefully it'll stop a little bit down the track. We don't know.
Some days I feel great and it's right, get up, what's on the schedule, what are we doing? Other days I'm not so great, so I know it'll be a bit slower day and I'll work around what's there. My progression is at the point now where I can't stand or sit independently. Therefore, I can't get in and out of bed independently, and I can't move in bed. So once I'm there, I'm stuck. So for me, just we've worked around making sure that we've got a plan for the day, and, you know, if I am feeling headachy or fatigued because we've had a big weekend or a big day previous, then it's okay to just take it easy. Now that's been hard for me to cope with, because I've typically been someone, you know, you get up, you're on the go from start to finish. So for me, getting used to the fact that I have to read my body and accept, you know what, it's okay to have a shit day. It's okay to have a sleep in the middle of the day because your body tells you need it. But mostly I get up, do the things that need to be done, and make sure that I try and get some family time, me time, and again do all the things that I want to do. Admittedly, mostly now it's through a carer, but still get in and run the household and do the stuff that I know is important to do.
Oh no, well I was really, really upset obviously over getting it, and then you think you need something that keeps you going. You want something to hang on to, and the fact that I'm going to be a grandmother to a grandson in May, and that's what keeps me going day by day. You know, buying little boy outfits on the internet and stuff like that. Every day you think about that child and what you can, how long you can be with it and what you can do to be with it, and memories that you can make with, you know, the parents so they know all about you. That's what keeps me going. Because sometimes if it wasn't for that grandchild, it's awfully hard, because you have very frustrating days.
The conversations at home, the conversations with friends, you get to a point where you're just so MND'd out, and you just want to forget that it's even happening. So talk about it when it's relevant, and then let it go. You've got to get on and do the things with your life that you want to do. This is just a condition. And when you had family and friends come over, and because we were diagnosed just before Christmas, we saw everyone. And we had to get to a point where I would say to Michael, right, I'm happy to discuss it for up to 15 minutes, then let's change the subject. And we did. And that was the only way that we could get people to understand that, you know, life goes on and you've got to do the things that you want to do. And even if it's challenging, you find your workaround, whether that's, you know, needing the walker, whatever that may be, but you make sure that you don't stop doing the things that make you who you are.
When you get a disease, you know, we spoke about support groups and things that you can become involved with, and you meet a lot of people who are on different stages in this disease, so different stages of progression. Some are sort of slow progressing like me, and some are a little faster. But it's the I don't know. I treat this as like a little bit of a family that I'm part of, and I love being, you know, yes, it's a crappy outcome, but I love being part of the family because I've met some just incredible people, not only other patients or other sufferers, but people from support groups, so such as yourselves, the people who've helped me out through my allied health, my relationship with my GP has just sort of blossomed.
You try to live with it every day. This is what our life is like now, so we've got to make the most of it. And like you said, down the track it's going to get worse, but with each day as it gets worse, we'll accept it and we'll challenge it. Do you know what I mean? We just have to go with the flow.
The thing that I have found most challenging is frustration. I just can't do the things that used to be so simple. But you learn quickly that you have to adapt. For example, I realised that I had to give up driving when I found that I had to lift my foot from the accelerator to the brake. I needed to put my arm down onto my knee to lift the leg. It just became too dangerous. But life goes on, and here are some suggestions as to how you can come to live with the changes that MND brings. It is what it is, so don't take risks that could mean you lose that precious little time you still have with your loved ones.
When MND is finally diagnosed, you know, there's some big things that can happen, you know, milestones if you like. So I had to stop driving when my legs started spasming too much. So it was dangerous for me to be on the road, not only for myself but for everyone else. So I made that decision to stop driving. Yeah, I eventually lost my job, but to me, driving was a big part of my life, having been a sales rep for so long, and then having to rely on other people to drive you around, take you here and there. You couldn't just get in a car anymore and go. So that was confronting for me, and it really, you could see it as taking away independence, but then also look at it as an opportunity to let someone else help you, because they may not, as I was talking before, people sometimes just don't know how to help. But you know, you pick up the phone and say, hey, I need to go to shopping centre to do this. You know, you've got a couple of hours you could spare me on Saturday afternoon. So that was a way of letting other people into this journey, as I said before, and letting them show the way that they could help. So yeah, that was tough for me, and it's still tough to this day. You know, sitting in a wheelchair in the back of the people mover with Lisa driving, and I'm a shocking backseat passenger. So Lisa just said, because my voice is a little bit raspy, so she just turns the radio up a little bit louder, so she can't hear me telling her where to drive and where to park and all that sort of thing. So that was pretty that was pretty confronting, losing that ability. The first time that Lisa pushed me in my push wheelchair was pretty ordinary. It's because I'm not a small boy, and I was very self-conscious of people looking at us going, oh, look at that poor woman having to push that massive big bloke around in a wheelchair. But the fact that I was in a wheelchair too, and my walking had become sort of dangerous that I had to be in a wheelchair. So that's another one. There'll be others to come.
Another one was when I couldn't turn in bed anymore, and so I needed a hospital bed. That took a long time to get used to, so we now have my bed squished up to our old bed, so that we've still got that connection. I've been surprised at how quickly I have accepted these things. It just gets easier, I suppose, when you know that you can have a workaround for the things that aren't working on you. So that's been helpful. When I've let it stop me do things, that's when I've been frustrated. And I suppose initially with the lack of independence, I got angry with myself often. And then I got to a point where I just said, you know what, stuff, it is what it is. And I now live this way instead of what I did before. We still try and do as many things as we can, but I've got to work around for those things. I mean, I thankfully don't have to iron anymore. I don't have to put the clothes on the line. And much to my husband's disgust, I don't cook the evening meal anymore. But you know what? We get around those things and we make it work.
The weakness gets difficult as time goes on. Luckily, I've been shown various sorts of aids, and I can actually show one at the moment I've got here. It's called a pocket dresser tool, came from America. What you do is you push that through there, hook it on the button, and you just pull it, voila. Because this is the biggest problem with someone, that when you've got weakness in your hands, you can't do buttons up. And it's very frustrating. And particularly if you're out and about and you get caught short, it's you need some sort of aid to help you. So we're able to cope with these sort of things. I've also got a walking wheelie, which we've had a trip overseas early last year, and that's about 6 months after my diagnosis. We went to Europe, did a river cruise, went to Italy, and then also went to the Greek Isles, which is rather interesting, and climbing up hills and that sort of stuff. So I took walking poles, and I also took this wheelie frame, which increased my ability to walk quite considerably. Without the frame, after 150 metres I would have been absolutely pooped, but with the frame I was walking for miles.
Well, the fact that I couldn't walk, and it was with the wheelie walk, it was a risk that I'd fall all the time, and it just got really hard for me to even put one foot in front of the other. So I really had no choice, because who's going to pick me up or carry? I had to get into a wheelchair, and you get used to it. You accept it and you get used to it. So if you go somewhere, you got your own chair. It was really hard at first. I wouldn't go out in public, but I've accepted it now. People are quite, what's the word? They accommodate you, like put you in a table where you can put a wheelchair in the end or something, and most people have got ramps and so on, so it's quite accommodating. So I'm not as bad as I used to be. I used to be embarrassed, and a couple of times I did go out. I used to always have my head down because I didn't want to make eye contact with anybody, but you get used to it. it's everyday life now. You know, you've got to live your life. You know, there's no use not living your life and letting it take over. I want to make the most of it, so if this is what I've got to do, this is what I've got to do.
But I think no matter how incapacitated, as long as you can still communicate. And in that line, I've also just taken delivery of a little headphone speaker apparatus that just came in from America to do voice banking. So I'm actually going to store my voice with a program called Mind Talker, I think it's called. Yeah, but the OTs will, a speech therapist can tell you about that. And what you do is you record something like 2,500 phrases, and down the track, if you do lose your voice, and not everybody loses their voice, I'm told. Some people are quite okay, but it affects everyone in different ways. So my philosophy is it's better to be prepared. And what you do is you eyeball a iPad screen, and that then gives the cue to actually saying that instead of in an electronic voice like Steve Hawken had, it'll be in my own voice. So that's, I think, a positive step for the future. So long as I can communicate with my partner and people around me, then I can contribute. We did meet a chap in a shopping centre whose father had MND and quite a number of years ago, and he died about 10 years ago. And he said to my wife, "Oh, you better learn Morse code." But fortunately, we've got a long way past that these days. Yeah.
When you're confronted with all these things that must change in your life because of MND, you can do one of two things. You can really let it eat away at you and really get you down in the dumps, or you can just accept it, which isn't easy for some people. Change isn't easy for a lot of people, but I sort of took the idea that this is going to make things safer for me, and it's going to make things safer for people around me. And by making them safer, it means I could be around a lot longer than what perhaps I could be. So if I'm in a wheelchair, there's less chance of me tripping, falling over, breaking an arm, breaking a leg, and then having to cause more grief for my family and friends for me being in hospital for a couple of months trying to recuperate from that. So to me, I had to put myself in the background a little bit and think about the impact it would have on other people. So moving from the push wheelchair into my power wheelchair now was a big one for me, because I was very self-conscious about how big it was, and you experienced this when I was conscious of going places and causing a scene, by trying to manoeuvre in and out behind tables and chairs and things. But then I just had to give myself an uppercut and say, yeah, but it also means at least it doesn't have to push me anywhere anymore if I can do it myself, because I can still drive with my hands. So I just had to suck it up, if you like, and that's what I did. You've got to, through this whole thing, you've got to think about the impact it's having on you, but also the impact it's having on the people around you, like my wife, my sons. So yeah.
As a physio in the past, I've known people that needed a wheelie frame, walking frame, or sticks or something, but they were too proud. I'm not going to have a walking frame. I'm too proud, I don't want to show that. But I think that is foolish. I think you've got to have the aids for balance, because one of the dangers with motor neurone disease when you get weaker in your legs is you lose balance. And one of the things that they're very concerned about is people having falls. And I've had a couple actually. If you aren't careful and don't use your aids, you can trip over and hit the deck and cut your face and break a nose or break your glasses or do all sorts of stuff. Fortunately, I haven't broken a nose, but I did cut my forehead quite badly at one stage and had 12 stitches in the forehead. So I would advise people to get the aids and use them. And when you're out, use them as well, because it does help you stay out longer.
MND and me trusts that you have found this video helpful. Thank you.